Being knocked out is not the worst thing that can happen in a fight.
What do you remember from that fight?
Nothing. You wake up hopefully in the cage, not in the hospital. You look at the big screen and see where the system has failed. Sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail. But being beaten up hopelessly and getting your face rearranged the entire fight is the least fun part of the job.
That wasn't even close.
Your
no,
face.
Marty, fake newsman. You didn't break my face. I got right up and protested it right away. That was a fake stoppage, fake ref, fake fight. Wait till I see you next time.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Clash of MMA. In today's video, we will cover 5 fighters who broke the faces of their opponents. We didn't list them in order, but we left the worst scenario for last. Fighting Tony Ferguson in his prime was like fighting a shredding machine. Not only would the fighters come out beaten, but the sewing doctors had their hands full after the fight. El Cucuy bathed in the blood of his opponents. But until another man showed up and proved that there is always a more bloodthirsty animal in the jungle. The fight without an audience sounded so much more vicious, and Justin Gaethje's shots rang out like church bells.
Lando Venata stung him. Oh, Gaethje just stung him.
Tonight as well.
Oh, man, look at that left hook. Oh! Hurt him with that right hand.
They were probably heard outside the arena in Jacksonville, too. From round to round, Ferguson's face was a bloody and swollen mess because Justin didn't spare any punches.
Eye is really swollen, but his right eye's real swollen.
The blows highlight used to shut down other opponents did not have the same effect on Tony, and that wasn't a good thing for Ferguson, who was better off being shut down earlier in the fight. He stood until his brain decided it had enough. When the fight was over, he looked like he had just walked out of a plastic surgeon. El Cucuy suffered a broken orbital and probably reduced his lifespan by 5 years due to the trauma his brain suffered. The Florida State Boxing Commission suspended Tony for a minimum of 60 days, and he returned to the fight only in 9 months, although it would be better if he didn't return at all. This was not the first time that Justin performed facial surgery. In the sequel, he smashed the faces of Rafael Fiziev and Michael Chandler too, but neither of them fared as badly as Ferguson. Gaethje is a man who will mercilessly knock you out with one punch or pound you for the rest of the fight until all your fuses are blown. The same can be said for our next fighter.
Mark Goddard came up to me and he said, I've been doing this for 20 years. The way he hits people, he goes, the sound is like nothing I've ever heard before. He said it's ungodly.
In the last title defense, Alex Pereira showed us that he is not only a knockout artist, but also a butcher. Due to his tendency to wipe out his opponents in the earlier rounds, we were not even aware of what he was capable of when the fighter did not want to go down. Turns out that it is better to get a dose of left hook in the first round than to fight until exhaustion like Cahill Roundtree.
His spirit tried to carry him, but his physical body just could not take the punishment.
He looked like he had survived a car crash. The amount of blood that flowed from him could not be stopped, even during the post-fight interview. The red fluids were so spurted that they ended up at the commentary table on Daniel Cormier's phone. Roundtree Jr. had to undergo septoplasty surgery and says it was an extremely painful experience.
You had septoplasty. Explain, sort of what it went through. And you said, unfortunately, it was a very painful surgery.
I don't know exactly what punch. I know that that uppercut after the body shots, that definitely landed on my nose. But I already had felt, some pain in my head. After we, got the scans, the doctors saw that there was some slight fracturing and a severely deviated septum. Definitely the most uncomfortable, painful procedure I've ever had.
We believe this will change the opinion of the future challengers and make them use wrestling for a change instead of a stand-up fight fueled by ego. Props to Cahill Roundtree, though, for standing his ground, keeping his promise, and giving a hell of a fight. All this at the cost of his face and millions of brain cells.
Last night, it was the hardest sleep. My mouth is constantly dry. Just a constant headache.
We are time traveling to 2018 when Max Holloway devastated the face of Brian Ortega in his title defense. The Blessed broke the record for the highest significant strike differential in UFC championship history.
Nice right hand there from Mac.
Oh, he tagged him. Wow. Ooh. Another nice right hand. Good angle.
T-City entered the fight like a supermodel and left as he fell out of a plane. Max's volume and spamming of 1 to 2 punches had to be stopped by the referee at the end of the 4th round. He played with the prey throughout the fight, although Brian did not give up at any point. Notice how the stubborn ones always come out of the fight facially destroyed. Well, that's in their job description, but some are simply too tough for their own good.
He just kept coming. He took a lot of shots from Max, but he just kept coming on. Like, how impressed were you with Brian's performance?
Blown away. I was blown away. I wanted them to stop that fight going into the 5th round. I was hoping that either the referee or the corner was going to stop that fight. The fight needed to be stopped. Here, that have been in the fight game for a long time, that's what you call too tough for your own good.
There are tough fighters, and then there is Brian Ortega. On the other hand, who would have thought that a skinny man like Holloway could do this to an opponent? Do you guys think he can do something similar to Renato Poirier? The supervisory authorities gave Brian 180 days of medical suspension due to the severity of the injuries he sustained. He had a broken nose and broken thumb, but showed that his body had an impressive regeneration over the next 15 days. However, this was not Max's first time to put on a striking clinic and devour his opponents' faces. He did so with Calvin Kattar and Yair Rodriguez too, in slightly milder limits. But only Brian Ortega didn't look like Brian Ortega after the clash with Max.
It's one of the sickest fights I've ever seen. The chin on Ortega is insane.
He should change his nickname from T-City to Mexican Zombie. He lived up to his roots, but at least he left the building on his own 2 feet, which can't be said for Dan Hooker, who had to be taken out on a stretcher when he experienced the adrenaline dump. If you haven't checked out the fight between him and Dustin Poirier, indulge yourself and you'll find your new favorite UFC fight 100%. 25-minute back and forth war that did not fail to amaze us. 2 violent characters, an empty hall, and the sound of blows pushed the limits of brutality.
Doric, lightweight. Nice. Big crack from Poirier. Big percent.
Oh! Look at this. Here comes the knee soon.
Oh! Wow!
Wow!
The fight was close and both men took a disastrous beating. Dustin got an awful black eye with few cuts, and Hooker literally had 2 huge cuts above his right eye, which is ironic given his name calling of Poirier. Both guys were awarded for Fight of the Night, but also with a medical suspension of 60 days and 45 days without contact. Believe it or not, Dan's swollen face only allowed him to open both eyes after 12 hours. Hangman is one of the most durable heads in the UFC. It's as if he enters every fight to destroy himself and not just the opponent. His opponents should not expect mercy because there is none even for himself. Now we have come to the worst case that happened recently. Few thought that Renato Moicano would be able to pass the up-and-coming prospect Benoit Saint-Denis, but the Brazilian showed that he should never underestimate him again. But besides more money and more kids, Moicano also wants blood. Motivated Renato is a new mythical fighter who has been in the UFC for 10 years and has only recently reached huge publicity. He got loud on the mic and even louder with the punches. Saint-Denis quickly found himself under Moicano, who rained down ground and pound, fists and elbows, staining the octagon with French blood. Benoit was a frickin' mess, but only after the first round.
The crowd was unreal, and that main event, we kind of talked about it last week, but it lived up, and Moicano beat the out of BSDs.
Previous fighters needed 5 rounds to disfigure an opponent, and Renato only 1. But it did not end there because in the second round, there were exchanges where the face of the French was further ruined. But at least this time, he was not stuck under the Brazilian. Still, he looked like he fought with a wasp hive. Saint-Denis took the second round, but at what cost? The doctor came in to check his vision and concluded that Benoit could not see in his right eye, and the fight had to be waved off.
So after that 10-8 round, are you amazed he was able to survive and keep going?
To be honest, I saw him fading on the force. I was giving him the blows, the elbows, and I could see that he didn't want to be there. I wouldn't too, right? I would not want to be on his place.
No one sane would want to be in his place, though. What makes this even more impressive is that Moicano had a terrible shoulder injury, but didn't want to cancel the fight. It is, as he said, Renato Moicano cannot afford to lose.
You guys, be ready. Money Moicano is coming for that gold.